Alabama. Dead Children's Playground. They called it Dead Children's Playground, though its real name was Drost Park. Tucked behind the towering headstones and crumbling mausoleums of Maple Hill Cemetery in Huntsville, the playground sat like a forgotten relic of joy nestled in the shadow of the dead. Legend had it that swings moved on their own at night. Disembodied laughter echoed from the trees, and if you stayed too long after dark, you might not make it out. Eli Davis had never believed in ghost stories. Raised in a cold, practical household with a father who worked aerospace for NASA and a mother who was a nurse, Eli grew up steeped in science, logic, and blood-soaked reality. So when his childhood friend Thomas dared him to visit the playground after midnight, he accepted with a scoff and a half-smile. "This place is for kids," Eli muttered as they stood at the edge of the tree line. It was 3 a.m., and the woods behind the cemetery were dark, nearly suffocating. Thomas grinned, his face lit by the bluish glow of his phone. "Yeah, dead ones." Casey, Thomas's cousin, stood behind them nervously, clutching a flashlight. "This is a dumb idea. You guys know what they say. The kids were murdered, dumped here, and they never left." "No proof," Eli said, stepping forward, crunching leaves underfoot. "Just stories. People see what they want." Still, as the trees closed in around them and the winding trail dropped into the bowl-shaped clearing where the playground sat, Eli's chest tightened. The playground was a surreal sight at night. The old slide was rusted and covered in graffiti. The merry-go-round creaked in the wind, and the swings, 3 of them, hung motionless, silent. "Looks like a crime scene," Casey whispered. Thomas scanned the area. "Used to be worse. City took out the old equipment, but they always put it back. Every time they remove the swings, something happens. People go missing. Equipment returns. Like something's forcing the park to stay. Let's see if the ghosts want to play," Eli said with a mock bow. He sat in one of the swings, its chains groaning. Nothing happened. No wind. No laughter. "See?" Eli said, smirking. "Urban legend." A loud creak echoed behind him. Casey pointed the flashlight at the second swing. It was swaying gently, then faster, then harder, the chains rattling. As if someone invisible was building momentum, it lifted almost parallel with the ground before snapping back with a loud clang. Casey dropped the flashlight. "Wind," Eli said, though his voice cracked. "There's no wind," Thomas shouted. The merry-go-round spun slowly now, making a low grinding sound that set their teeth on edge. The air turned cold, icy, unnatural, and then, just past the metal jungle gym, Eli saw her. A girl, maybe 7, pale, wearing an old dress like something out of the 1950s. She stood perfectly still, her hands at her sides, head tilted, watching them. Eli stood from the swing. "Hello?" he called. "Are you lost?" She didn't respond. Then she blinked out of existence. "Just gone." "I saw her," Thomas whispered. "She was right there. I swear." A shriek split the air high, broken, childlike. It echoed off the rocks surrounding the clearing, warping into something darker. Not a child's cry, something older, angrier. Casey stumbled back. "We need to go." The ground under the merry-go-round cracked. A noise like splitting wood filled the air, and a jagged hole appeared beneath it, as if something from underground was pushing up. The rusted carousel split in 2, crashing sideways into the dirt. "Move!" Thomas yelled. They ran, but the woods had changed. The trail behind them no longer led up to the cemetery. It twisted deeper into the trees, the shadows denser, darker, alive. They ran anyway, dodging branches and thorns. Hearts pounding. Whispers followed them. Children whispering lullabies in reverse. Names spoken in voices that sounded too wet, too broken. Eli, Thomas, Casey. They stopped at a fork in the trail. 3 paths, none familiar. Eli gasped for air. "Which way?" "I don't know," Casey cried. Then the girl appeared again directly in front of them. Her eyes were black voids. Her mouth opened wider than it should have, tearing the corners of her cheeks. A sound like gurgling death poured out. Thomas turned and ran down the left path. "This way." They followed blindly. The path twisted and dropped again, and to their horror, emptied back into the playground. But now it was different. The swing sets had multiplied rows of them swaying with invisible children. Slides that weren't there before. rose like rusted towers. The trees surrounding the clearing moved closer, roots coiling like tentacles. They weren't in the park anymore. They were inside something, trapped. Thomas collapsed. "We never left. It brought us back. We're in their place now." Casey fell to his knees. I told you it was real." Eli looked up. The stars above had shifted. They spun in tight circles, faster and faster, like a vortex. The children stepped out of the shadows, dozens of them. Dressed in outdated clothes, their faces pale, expressions blank. And behind them, towering over the playground, something massive rose from the ground. A humanoid figure, skeletal, with long limbs and the faces of many children embedded in its chest, all screaming silently. "The caretaker," Thomas whispered. "It guards them, feeds them." The swings began to move in unison. Eli tried to speak, but his mouth wouldn't open. The girl from before stood before him again, holding a stuffed rabbit, missing an eye. She held out her hand. Eli reached for it, compelled by something older than fear. The moment he touched her, everything changed. He was no longer in his body. He was standing in the past. The girl's name was Anna. She was murdered in 1956. She and 9 other children went missing in the area over the span of 2 years. All had been buried in shallow graves beneath the playground by a man named Garrett Sloan, a gravedigger from Maple Hill. The bodies had been found. Sloan hanged himself. But the children had never moved on. They stayed. And something else came with them, the thing that rose with their pain. It fed off their torment. Their play was a curse loop, endless, eternal. Eli snapped back into his body. The girl had vanished. Thomas was gone. Casey was crying, curled on the ground, blood leaking from his ears. The children advanced. Ellie screamed. "Let us go." The caretaker moved forward, its face inches from his. The faces of children in its chest wept blood. A bony finger reached out, touched Eli's forehead, and then Eli woke up. Daylight. Crows caught above. He lay at the edge of the playground, Casey beside him, unconscious but breathing. Thomas was never found. They told the police. Thomas wandered off. Search dogs picked up nothing. The park was temporarily closed again. Eli's story was ignored, labeled trauma-induced hallucination. But Ellie knew. At night, he still heard the laughter, the swings creaking when no one was there. And sometimes, just before sleep, he'd see Thomas standing behind the girl with black eyes smiling with her. Forever playing. At the Dead Children's Playground. Like and subscribe.